years than I can recall covering Major League Baseball, meaning at the beat level, I really hated when every single time the local franchise would sign some crappy player, I'd get inundated with, well, here comes the World Series and everything else. I promised myself I'd never become that. I'd never be that guy, and that I'd always push back when I heard it. I don't know about that anymore. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. Comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. 3 cheers before we get going today for your upstart, plucky, gritty, how do they do it, Los Angeles Dodgers on squeaking one out past the big, bad Milwaukee Brewers. Last night, by a 2-1 count, Game 1 of the National League Championship Series. Do not take the eyes off the prize, my friends. No matter what it is that you think of the miscreants in the current Pittsburgh management or ownership or whatever else, remember that none of this means a thing without the salary cap system coming in. And everyone in favor of the cap system benefits from the Dodgers winning the World Series this year and next year. Go get 'em blue. And go get 'em black and gold too, because Ben Cherington's first move of this offseason was to claim off waivers Will Robertson, an outfielder who spent the 2025 season split between the Blue Jays and White Sox systems, including 2 short stints with each of those major league rosters. Robertson is 27. He's an outfielder capable of playing in all 3 slots, and he has every quality that you'd want in a 4A player, which is to say he can hit like crazy in the minors and hasn't been able to do it at all in the majors. In fact, hasn't been asked to do it at all in the majors. And I'll repeat, he was 27 years old this past season. In the minors, he had a .958 OPS last season with 20 home runs and 60 RBIs over 89 games. There aren't many guys who hit that many home runs in AAA and don't get a call. Multiply that many times over when you're in the White Sox system and still can't crack the lineup. But in those couple of calls that he did get, he'd come up and make everybody look smart for not having called him. He batted .129. This over 75 plate appearances in which he had 1 extra base hit out of his 9 hits. Struck out 27 times, and you're going to think I'm making this last one up. He walked twice in 75 plate appearances. Now listen, I'll rewind to the intro here today. I would always treat these things as what they are. Every team picks these players up. And even though they're added to the 40-man roster, it doesn't mean they're going to be on the 40 by the time spring training breaks in Bradenton. And in all likelihood, what you're really trying to achieve is to get the player through waivers at whatever point the DFA happens. Player goes to the minors. The player makes your system look a little bit better, even though he wouldn't actually be adding anything to that system if he can't perform in Pittsburgh. And yeah, it doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing. I'm not being dumb here. But what I am going to do this offseason, when it's a player who's added to the 40, I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to bring him up because the pattern that's been in place here under Cherington, and this goes throughout his tenure, is that thing that he talked about in that awkward press conference of his a couple of weeks ago that reminded everybody that what he's trying to do is to, quote, take a bet, end quote, on guys see who it is that pans out, which is a nice and smart thing to do in years 1 or 2 of a tenure. When you're doing it in year 7 and you're doing it in volume, and we'll see how this goes, and all you're really trying to do is disguise warts, to put on a show for the 2 guys over his head, to say, well, look at us, look at the Indianapolis Indians and all the big bats they've got, Connor Griffin and that dude we got from the White Sox, and nobody else. And there will be another thing that's worth watching. Again, not judging from this single move, but worth watching over time. And that's if you see this occurring with enough frequency, then you'll be able to pile on to what I think is going to become mounting suspicion that the payroll's not going to go anywhere significant. And I got to tell you, I don't think it should go anywhere significant for the 2026 season. This guy's had his opportunity. He hasn't had massive amounts of money, but the money that he's had, he's grossly misspent, and he's done that through every available avenue. So why should he be handed anything remotely resembling a blank check? He can just go ahead and see how many of these Will Robertsons he can dig up. Judging from Robertson's big league stats, so far he's off to an inspired start, in that one would think he'd at least be that rare hitter who comes to Pittsburgh and doesn't regress, if only because the math won't allow it. When we come back, J1Q.
If you're looking for a great dining experience, look no further than North Shore Tavern. Located directly across Federal Street from PNC Park, next door to Mike's Beer Bar, North Shore Tavern is Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. Enjoy your steak finished on a hot lava stone in front of you, where you ensure each piece is cooked to exactly your liking. Or try their rotating selection of entrees, hot sandwiches, salads, and burgers, all while enjoying the ambiance dedicated to the great players and history of the Pittsburgh Pirates all around you. Come see why everyone's talking about North Shore Tavern and steak on a stone.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers can compile your name, contact info, social security number, home address, even information about your family members, and they can sell it online. Have you ever been a victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Our listeners get a special discount. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/hit. Use promo code HIT at checkout. That's HIT. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/hit and enter HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/hit, code HIT.
Today's J1Q comes from Paul Morris, who says, "Hi, Dan. I agree with you that it would be best for the Dodgers to win the World Series to illustrate how unfair the current economic system is. But do you really think it's going to make a difference on how the Major League Baseball Players Association will react to a salary minimum and maximum payroll system offer? If the owners are really serious about having the same kind of compensation system that every other professional sports league has, there's going to be a lockout regardless of who wins the World Series." Well, yeah. And no, it's not going to make any difference to what the union thinks or how the union responds. But I can't stress this strongly enough.
What the union thinks or how the union responds to any of this doesn't matter. Every time this subject comes up, especially with the more casual fans, the ones that don't know one millifraction of what you just spoke there, Paul, is, well, they have such a tough union, they'll never say yes to this. They don't have to. Look up the histories of the NFL installing the salary cap system, of the NHL doing so, and you'll see that the unions weren't in favor at any point of anything. They got broken. They hide behind the union label, which they really shouldn't even use. Pittsburgh being the birthplace of real unionism, we all have, I hope, a good idea of why unions were created. It sure wasn't to make sure that Bryce Harper can get $30+ million a year. So that in and of itself is probably a term that we ought to not be using. Players Association sounds better. I think I'm going to stick with that one. They get broken. They get busted. They get their backs thrown against the wall, and they break down. They give in. They relent. Why? Because in any workplace, the owners set the rules. If you don't want to work there, you don't have to work there. Now, Major League Baseball has the antitrust exemption, which complicates things and which could end up getting government involved and da-da-da-da-da. But this idea that the union's got to say, oh, you know what? We looked up how this stuff goes and we kind of like it and we're just going to say yes. No. There's no chance of that. None. That's why, and you said this yourself, Paul, there's going to be a work stoppage. This is why there's going to be a work stoppage, because the owners are going to want to exert the most possible pressure on the players. And the one great way to do that is to not let them play. When they don't play, there's no pay. When they don't play, their records, their legacies, their year of that career that can never be had back. Whether you're Shohei Ohtani or you're Will Robertson, there's no backsies, no makeups for this. That's how and why these things work. And that's how and why the owners are going to take this approach. I appreciate the question. I appreciate all the extra kind words that you put on there. I wasn't going to read that on the show, but thank you so much. Appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.